everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we have another weekly giant book haul, and this week was crazy. You can't even tell how tall this stack is, but this was one of the craziest weeks of book mail I have ever had. For some reason, the last 3 days, pretty much every publisher has sent me an extensive amount of packages. Today I had a stack of 6 Simon & Schuster books just sitting on my step, so let's go ahead and go through these because we have a lot to get through. We're going to start with the ones that aren't from Atria because for some reason they sent the large bulk of all of these books. There's literally a stack of 20 books next to me that are all from Atria, Simon & Schuster. So we're going to start with everything that isn't from them because there's only about 8 of those. So the first 3 are from William Morrow, which is an imprint of HarperCollins. And the first one, I squealed when I opened this. This is Famous Last Words by Gillian McAllister. You might recognize this name from the book Wrong Place, Wrong Time, or her newest one, I think it's called Just Another Missing Person. But I have read both of those books and they're so enjoyable, so I can't wait for her new arc. This one, it says, it's an addictive thriller about a new mother whose world is upended when her husband commits a terrifying crime. How well does she truly know the man she loves? And what danger does she face if her entire life has been built on a lie? Tell me that doesn't sound so good. This does come out in February. The next one that I got from William Morrow is this one called No One Will Know. And the words around the title say they're the perfect couple. They have the perfect plan. All they need is the perfect victim. It says that this is a gripping novel about a desperate young woman and the manipulative, wealthy couple who will stop at nothing to ensure their worst nightmare becomes a dream come true. How unhinged and crazy does this sound? I actually can't wait. I'm in the mood for crazy books like this with it being spooky season. Very unhinged thrillers are super up my alley, so can't wait for this one too. And then the last one from William Morrow is The House at Watch Hill, and this is a fantasy but also kind of a thrilling novel, I believe. It was blurred by Sophie Jordan, and she says this book has everything, a witchy, sexy read that will make that made me sleep with the lights on, which is exactly what you're looking for in the fall time. It says that this author is back with a gripping, imaginative, and seductive new series in which a young woman moves to Divinity, Louisiana to inherit a large fortune in a gothic mansion full of eerie mysteries and ominous secrets. Say less. I'm so sold on all 3 of these. So these are the ones from HarperCollins, and they all sound so good. Next up, I got a box from Brenda Novak, and it has her newest book, which is called The Banned Books Club. And it says she left her hometown following a scandal, but family loyalty is dragging her back. And basically, this is about a woman who left at 18. She had a scandal with a high school teacher who she reported, and she got him fired, but the town kind of turned against her. But she has to go back because her mother's health is deteriorating, so she goes back to care for her mom and also to kind of stop running from her past. So this sounds really good, and it came with this puzzle that has a whole bunch of banned books on it, which I'm obsessed with. I think this is so cute. And then it also came with a little pin and also a sheet of stickers of Brenda Novak's books and just some bookish stickers in general. So super cute, and I'm excited for that book. Next, from the Dial Press, we have the new Sophie Kinsella book. This one's called What Does It Feel Like? And I was really surprised by how tiny this book is. It's super small. It's about 100 pages. And I also was very intrigued by the premise. So it says it's an unforgettable story by turns heartbreaking and life-affirming of a renowned novelist facing a devastating diagnosis and learning to live and love anew. And she herself blurbed it on the back, and I found it very intriguing. This isn't a true story, but it's kind of based upon her life. She says that What Does It Feel Like is fiction, but it is my most autobiographical work to date. Eve's story is my story. Why did I write such a personal book? I have always processed my life through writing, hiding behind my fictional characters. I've always turned my life into a narrative. It is my version of therapy, maybe. Writing is my happy place, and writing this book, although tough going at times, was immensely satisfying and therapeutic to me. So I'm super intrigued. This is the author of the Shopaholic series. She's very well known for a whole lot of her books, so I can't wait to read this one, and again, it's going to be a very quick read. Next up, we have 2 books from Bloom Books. They sent me the newest book in this series, but also the first book in the series. They said I could pass along the first book to a friend, a family member, a follower, but I actually don't have the first book yet, and I haven't read this series yet, so I'm going to be holding on to it at least until I'm done reading it. So the first book is The Dead Guy Next Door, and then this 4th book is called The Body in the Backyard, and this sounds like a really kind of unhinged romance mystery book. It's about this woman who is basically super broke. She's divorced. She's living with this group of elderly people who are her roommates, and a guy shows up dead next door, and she becomes a suspect in the murder case. And so her and the detective are working together to try to figure out what happened to the guy next door. They're gonna end up with a romance despite her being a suspect at first, but it sounds super cute. And here are the other 2 books books that are in the series that I don't have. It's The Corpse in the Closet and The Blast from the Past. So I'm excited to read this series. I always love a good Bloom romance. And now we finally made it into our Atria pile, which is, again, the majority of these books. I have to show this first because I'm simply obsessed with it. This is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which you're going to be thinking, why is this so exciting? This book's been out for years. I love this book. And they sent me the new special edition of it. So it has these stenciled edges and like the green sprayed edges all around. And it also has really gorgeous end papers. And then the front is plain, but it does have the words, All My Love, Evelyn on it. And I just can't wait to have this on my shelf. I think it's so stunning. So absolutely obsessed, and definitely get your hands on this because I think this is like a limited print run. Next up, I got this book called Night and Day, and I was really like surprised when I found out about this book because this is by the author John Connolly. He writes a lot of like detective crime thrillers, and I'm not super into that like subgenre of thrillers. They're not my very favorite, so I haven't read one of his yet, but this is very different. This is a collection of shivery and supernatural tales to thrill and chill. So they're going to be like short stories that are super creepy and spooky, which do sound up my alley. So I had to grab this one. I feel like this sounds so good. The next one is a finished copy of Leave the Girls Behind, which was already on my TBR. This book sounds absolutely incredible. Basically, this girl is super obsessed with true crime, and she is really obsessed with this case that happened 19 years ago. When she was a kid, her childhood best friend went missing and was discovered dead, and they were able to try and like charge a serial killer to be the person who murdered her, but this girl finds out 19 years later that serial killer didn't act alone. So now she is single-handedly trying to uncover who it was, who his accomplice was, and like how to track him down, which sounds so wild and like super dangerous, so I can't wait to read this one. Next up, we have a book of poems, which I always love a good book of poetry. So this one's called Scorched Earth. It comes out on the 4th of March, so it is an arc, and it says it's a searing, expansive new collection of poems unpacking what it means to have outlived the life you'd expected to have. These are poems of black joy, queer love, and radical acceptance of the self. So I feel like this is going to be so good. I love books of poetry, and I haven't read one in like at least a month or so I will be reading this one very soon. The next one's definitely out of my like comfort zone. This one's called Targeted. Don't make fun of me, I don't even know how to pronounce this word, but this is like a true story. It says the 1983 Marine barracks bombing and the untold origin story of the War on Terror. The reason this intrigued me is because it is by Jack Carr, who is a thriller novel writer. I actually haven't read one of his yet, but I was intrigued by a nonfiction book from him, so I wanted to just at least check it out. My husband is really into history, so I'm gonna see if like this interests him at all, if this type of story interests him. I'm not sure, but it does have pictures in it, which I always find fun with nonfictions. This one might be my most exciting one. This one's called Witness 8, and this thriller looks so good. It says, what if the witness was more twisted than the killer? And it's about this woman who basically used to be well off and wealthy, but something happened to her that resulted in her now being a maid for like the type of people that she used to be in the same neighborhood as. So she's working as a maid, she witnesses a murder, and it says that when she witnesses this murder, she has wicked plans in mind that don't involve telling the authorities the truth. That takes place right here on the blurb, and I haven't read past it because that sounds so unhinged already, so I just can't wait for this one. This does come out in March, so I'm going to read this very soon. It sounds so good. Next up, this sounds like not normally up my alley, this type of book, but the premise looked so amazing. It's called The President's Lawyer, and it says a high-stakes legal thriller following a Washington, D.C. litigator who was hired to defend his best friend, the former president of the United States, against a murder charge. Like, I'm obsessed. That sounds so crazy. I'm not usually the biggest like legal thriller person, but the premise of this one just sounded too wild, so I had to check it out. Next up, we have this hardcover that's gorgeous. It's called The Witches of El Paso, and it says Magic, Motherhood, and the Music of the Coven, and this is supposed to be like kind of like fantasy-esque book, I believe. It says spanning borders and centuries, this book is a wild, wondrous novel about the magic that is singing all around us. With this story, this author shows us how to catch the tune. That sounds so good. This book takes place in a specific town where the lines of like reality and supernatural are like beginning to blur. They're kind of becoming one and the same. And it says one family is about to find themselves at a border that may be too dangerous to cross. So this sounds, again, perfect for like the fall time for like spooky season because it does have those like fantasy elements to it. The next one's a nonfiction book that I actually have already read. This is a book that if you have a dog will help you understand your dog a little bit better. Kind of gets in the mind of a dog and helps explore like the connection that you have with your dog and how that works. I definitely really enjoyed it and recommend it. I have a rescue dog and I read this about a year ago and it really did help me understand my dog better. So highly recommend. This is called The Purest Bond, and it even says you're understanding the human-canine connection. This next one I got is called Who I Always Was, and this is actually a collection of like essays that are a memoir. It says that it's a deeply honest memoir. It's a debut collection, sets out to answer the universal question of why am I like this? Sounds super deep. I feel like if you're asking that question, it's gonna like be a somewhat deep and emotional book, but I'm excited to read this. This comes out in February on the 4th, by the way. The next one is called The Crescent Moon Tea Room, and as I'm recording this, I think this comes out today on October 1st. I could be mistaken though, it could have come out last week. But this one did come with this cute little like art print, and it has a little playlist on the back that goes to Spotify that has a playlist that obviously goes with the book, which is so cute. And this book says, "The Quigley sisters, what's more magical than witchy triplets, and their lovely cozy stories will steal your heart." It's about these triplets that very tragically lost their parents, and now they run a tea shop together, and they there's some sort of like magical stories that they tell through that, and it just sounds so cute. Next up is a book that I've heard incredible things about. This is called Interesting Facts About Space, and this is a newly in paperback book because it was released in the past in hardcover, but I've heard that this is absolutely incredible. It says it's a fast-paced, hilarious, and ultimately hopeful novel for anyone who has ever worried they might be a terrible person. So another one that I think is going to get a little bit deep potentially, but again, I've heard like insane things about this. This was like slightly on my radar before it came out, but then since it's come out, all I've seen are rave like 5-star reviews of this, so can't wait to dive into this one. The next one I have already read. This is another newly in paperback book. This one's The Antique Hunter's Guide to Murder, and I really enjoyed this. This came out I think last December or maybe last January, but it was so good. So definitely recommend. It is like heavily deals with the antique world, and that's not something that I personally like knew a lot about or was interested in even, but it's like a murder mystery that takes place in the antique selling and finding world, and they do a great job of it, of like apparently accurately representing the antique world, which I don't know, but from what I've heard it's very accurate and good, but also not making it boring. Like I was very intrigued. It was kind of like almost Agatha Christie-esque murder mystery where you're wondering who is the killer. They're all at this like antique like event that they're all there together, which was fun. So definitely recommend this one. I've definitely thought of this one quite a bit since I've read it, which is always a good sign for thrillers. This one actually snuck its way in. This is, wait a second, I got these mixed up. This last stack are all from Macmillan, not from Simon & Schuster. How did I get that confused? So Simon & Schuster still sent me by far the most, but it wasn't, I can't even pick up their pile. It was like maybe half the books total, not like 80% of the books total. These last handful are all Simon & Schuster. The first one's this really cute looking romance book. It's called The Slowest Burn, and it says sometimes the perfect recipe just needs a little extra heat. And it's about these two people who end up in an unlikely pairing. One of them's a like ghostwriter for cookbooks, and she's always like kind of toyed with the idea of making her own cookbook, but she never steps out of her comfort zone. She lost her husband 3 years ago. She still lives with her in-laws, even though she wants to move out, but she doesn't have the guts to tell them she wants to move out. She's certainly not ready to be dating yet, and again, she's not really willing to put herself out there and try to write her own cookbook, but she gets a job writing this guy's cookbook. He was a very successful chef on a TV show recently, so he's writing a cookbook, and she is who like his people hire to write it, and of course they're gonna end up falling for each other, and that sounds so cute. I'm super excited for this one. Next up are two different Christmas books. We have The Merriest Misters and then also The Christmas Inn. This one looks like a super cozy like Christmas book. It says a feel-good novel as delightful and comforting as a cup of hot chocolate on a cold winter night. Sounds perfect for like Christmas time where you're sitting by the Christmas tree and you have like Christmas music on the TV and you're just reading a cozy book. Like, sign me up. And then the other one's called The Merriest Misters. And this one, it says, there's no one I trust more to deliver the holiday spirit wrapped up in perfectly timed comedic gold than Timothy. I swear my heart grew 3 sizes from reading this book. And that's from Alicia Thompson, who's the author of With Love from Cold World. Now this book sounds crazy. This one's about Patrick and Quinn, who have been married for less than a year. It says, with their once passionate romance is cracking under the pressure of domestic life and a cumbersome mortgage, that's until Christmas Eve when Patrick wakes Quinn up with a confession. I think I killed a man. Like, that sounds absolutely crazy. I just got the most exciting email ever as I was sitting talking about this book. I like saw it pop on my phone. Me and my husband are going to Dragonsteel this year. I'm so excited right now. Okay, putting that aside, I cannot wait. I have a few more books to talk about though. Oh my goodness. Okay, this next one is called The Shutouts, and this is by the author of Yours for the Taking, and I loved Yours for the Taking. I read that last year before it came out. It came out, I think, December last year, and this is a similar genre where it's going to be dystopian queer. It says a brilliant queer dystopian novel from the author of Yours for the Taking, following a cast of characters on the margins of a strange and exclusive new society. So it sounds very similar to the other book. I don't think it's related, like in the same world or anything, but either way I'm pumped because her writing was super like crazy and good. And the next one is called Last to Leave the Room, and this one actually came with a signed book plate, which I'm super excited for. I love when they send things like that. And this one says, It's in the city of San Sirico, and it's sinking. The basement of Dr. Tamsin Rivers, the arrogant, selfish head of the research team assigned to find the source of the substance, is sinking faster. It sounds like a very like spooky and eerie, like fantasy-esque book, and that creature has me terrified in the best of ways. So can't wait to read this one. The last one before a couple of duplicates is called Betrayal at Blackthorn Park, and this is a mystery like series, I believe. I haven't read any in this series, but I have I think the first book in the series, which is A Traitor in Whitehall. And this one is supposed to be a historical murder mystery, superbly constructed whodunit, pays homage to Agatha Christie's like book, so I'm super excited. I love Agatha Christie, so it sounds up my alley. And then the last two for this video, I'm like rushing because I'm so excited to tell my husband because he doesn't know yet, are two duplicates. So I got both of these books in my book mail, I think just in the last week's book mail, and so I'll definitely be doing giveaways over my Instagram, Bethany's_books11, with both my duplicate copies. So we have Karaoke Queen, which I'm super pumped for because I loved Dominic's last book, and then Cross My Heart, which I'm also super pumped for because I've read all but one of Megan Cullen's books, and they've all been so good. So a couple of books that I'm super excited for, but also excited to give away to someone else. That is all of them. My lovely editor was complaining that I never film any sort of outro, so here is the outro. I hope you guys enjoyed another crazy week of book releases. If you made it to the end, go ahead and comment which one of these books you are most excited to read yourself, because I have the hardest time picking what to read first. I feel like I have to read one of the thrillers or one of the spooky season books, but it's going to be tough to pick which one.